you, Tracy. If you need to go and use the facilities, they're out that door there on the right-hand side. Welcome to the meeting. For your information, the councillors, myself, and those three gentlemen there will be the people making the decision today. The other people here are the officers, and they will be aiding us in getting to our decision and making sure we stick to the legal side and procedures by this council. Okay, and Patrick there will be taking the minutes. Also, this meeting is being streamed, and if it goes off at any time, we will just carry on because it's not necessary to wait until it comes back up again. Okay, thank you. Patrick, could you give the fire brief?
Thank you, Chair. We don't have any fire drills scheduled, so if the fire alarm does go off, please make your way by the nearest available exit, which is either here or behind me. Don't use the lift. Well, it's not working anyway, but don't try and use the lift. And the place to congregate is the car park in front of the building. Thank you.
Do any members have any declaration of interest in this meeting? No? Thank you. We then go on to the main point of the agenda, which is the application for consent for trade from a location defined as a consent street in accordance with the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act of 1982. Could I ask Alex to present a summary of the application, please?
Thank you, Chair. Issue: to consider an application to trade from a location defined as a consent street within the East Cambridgeshire district boundary. Recommendations: that members consider the content of the report and all the evidence provided during the hearing and determine the application in accordance with the options contained in paragraph 23, that's an edit of this report. Background and options. Street trading policy. The Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982, which I will refer to as the Act going forward, contains adopted provisions enabling local councils to control street trading by designating streets as licensed streets, consent streets or prohibited streets. Street trading is only permitted in licence or consent streets if the council has given permission by way of a licence or consent. Permission cannot be given to trade in prohibited streets. Street trading is not controlled in streets that have not been designated by the council or in areas covered by one of the exemptions within the legislation. The council reviewed its street trading resolutions in 2015 and following consultation exercise, all streets as defined by the Act in the district were designated as consent streets except for the A10, A11 and A14 trunk roads which were designated as prohibited streets. This change took effect from the 1st of April 2016. In accordance with the Council Street Trading Policy, applications that do not attract objections can be dealt with via delegated powers to officers. However, if an objection is received, the application must be determined by members. The application. A new application for an annual static street trading consent was received from Tracy Gordon of 52 East Fen Common, Soham, Cambridgeshire, CB7 5JJ, trading as Tracy's Tasty Treats, to sell cakes and baked items from a cake shed located at the side of the premises during the following times: Friday to Sunday, 8 AM to 6 PM. The applicant provided all necessary supporting documentation, including evidence of food business registration, sufficient food hygiene training, business insurance, and permission from the property owner to trade at the address. The application form, location plan, and photos of the trading unit can be found in appendices 1, 2, and 3, respectively. In accordance with the policy, we conducted a 28-day consultation process with property owners within 100 metres who directly overlook the proposed location. The consultation period concluded on the 1st of July 2026. During the consultation period, officers received 3 representations consisting of 1 objection and 2 comments, and you can find copies of these at Appendix 4. The objection asked for the application to be reviewed, citing potential issues arising under the categories of public safety, highway and compliance with legal requirements. These principally relate to the potential impact of increased traffic and parking on the common due to customers accessing the applicant's property. The first comment raises concerns regarding the condition of the track on the common used to access residential properties and how this would deteriorate with increased traffic. It was also remarked upon that there is no street lighting on the highway access to the common or on the common itself, which may make it unsafe to access or egress from the site, bearing in mind the operating hours made in the application. The second comment was received from Cheffins, who represent the landowner, the lord of the manor. Concerns were raised regarding customers accessing the applicant's property, which would result in intensification of use that would likely result in degradation of the common and impact on neighbouring properties. A suggestion is also made with respect to the proposed trading hours in that these be reviewed to cause minimal impact to residents who live on the common. Following the conclusion of the consultation period, the applicant provided a supporting representation which is attached as Appendix 5. Within this document, the applicant addresses the objections received and presents additional photos of the site and supporting letters from residents. And there is currently one other cake shed operation in Soham that has been granted a street trading consent. As I've already been asked about this, it's in Valerian Gardens, which if you drove there from East Fen Common would be 1.1 miles, but as the crow flies, it's about half a mile. Arguments and conclusions. In considering applications for the grant of the street trading consent, the Council will have regard to the individual merits of the application and the relevant legislation, as well as the following key considerations. Public safety, whether the street trading activity represents or is likely to represent a substantial risk to the public from the point of view of obstruction, fire hazard, unhygienic conditions, or danger that may occur when a trader is accessing the site. Public order, whether street trading activity represents or is likely to represent a substantial risk to public order. The avoidance of public nuisance, whether street trading activity represents or is likely to represent a substantial risk of nuisance to the public from noise or misbehaviour, particularly in residential areas. Highway, the location and operating times will be such that the highway can be maintained in accordance with the Cambridgeshire County Council's requirements, and that there are no dangers to those who have a right to use the highway and no obstruction for emergency access. And finally, compliance with legal requirements. Trading should only be conducted from a trading unit that complies with relevant legislation. Observations from relevant officers will be considered on this point. The Council may have regard to the number, nature and type of traders already trading within a consent area when determining an application. The policy states that the Council will normally grant a street trading consent unless, in its opinion, a significant effect on road safety would arise either from the siting of the trading activity itself or from customers visiting or leaving the site, where there are concerns over the recorded level of personal injury accidents in the locality where the street trading activity will be sited. There would be a significant loss of amenity caused by traffic, noise, rubbish, potential for the harbourage of vermin, odour or fumes. There is already adequate light provision in the immediate vicinity of the site to be used for street trading purposes, but note that competition issues will not be a consideration. There is a conflict with traffic orders, such as waiting restrictions. The site or pitch obstructs either pedestrian or vehicular access or traffic flows or places pedestrians in danger when in use for street trading purposes. The trading unit obstructs the safe passage of users of the footway or carriageway. The trading unit is not considered to be suitable in style or in keeping with the location requested. The pitch interferes with sight lines for any road users, such as at road junctions or pedestrian crossing facilities. The site does not allow the consent holder, staff and customers to park in a safe manner. And finally, the street trading activity is carried out after dusk and the site is not adequately lit to allow safe access and egress from the site for both customers and staff. The policy allows members and officers to depart from the policy where there are clear and compelling reasons for doing so. Schedule 4, paragraph 7.2 of the Act provides that the Council may grant a consent if they think fit, subject to observing the mandatory grounds for refusal at subparagraph 7.3. No mandatory grounds of refusal are applicable to this application. The Council is not under any duty to grant a street trading consent and need not specify any of the statutory grounds for refusal. Therefore, the matter to grant or refuse an application for a street trading consent is at the total discretion of the Council. However, the Council must have regard to its policy, which outlines the approach that it will take in determining applications of this sort, and any comments submitted in support of or in opposition to the granting of the application. Members will need to give full reasons for their decision. Accordingly, the committee may 1. Grant the application as it stands, in which case it will be subject to the Council's approved standard conditions, which you will find in Appendix 6. 2, grant the application with any variation deemed reasonably necessary, subject to the Council's approved standard conditions and any other specific conditions or restrictions the committee deem reasonable and appropriate. Or 3, refuse the application. Street trading consents are issued for a maximum of 12 months. It can be given for shorter periods, and street trading consents can be revoked at any time. Just within the last section on financial and legal implications, I'll just bring members to the point of point 27. Where an application is refused, reasons for refusal will be provided. The decision of the committee is final. The 1982 Act does not allow any legal appeals against the decision of the Council in relation to the issue of street trading consents. A person aggrieved against a decision of the Council may, though, seek a judicial review of the decision of the licensing panel should it be felt necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions for Alex from members? Councillor Horgan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And again, this may be a debatable point, but I'm looking on page 7 of your report, where you, item 4, where it talks about street trading is only permitted, etc., etc. And there it says, street trading is not controlled in streets that have not been designated by the council. Now, the fact this is actually off of a street and it's on private property, does it still fall within the designated streets are everywhere in Soham classification?
Yes, the licensing manager and I have discussed this point, and we are of the opinion from looking at the legislation that this applies to land adjacent to consent streets as well, where the public have access to. And in this case, in Tracy's case, it would apply.
Thank you. Moving on, if I may, Chair. Obviously, we've had objections from the Lord of the Manor via his agent, Sheffins. One observation, but a question first. It talks about the track, i.e. how to access the premises there, is granted for residents to access their home, but have you established whether or not anybody going across it that isn't a resident and not somebody just visiting the home who's like a friend or something like that, or family member, has he stated that he would refuse any trading access across the pathway used?
I'll first just say the comment which was put through from Sheffins wasn't an objection per se, it was a comment, that he was quite clear on that. I understand from what was sent through that there was at point, if we're on page 26, point 3 of the email which was sent through, it says, any access available to the applicant's property is for residential purposes only. Any trade-related access is deemed to be an intensification of use and would void any previous agreement or rights of way for access. This may be something that Tracy could perhaps elaborate on, because she does actually live on the common, but for the purposes of determining this application, I do not believe we take into account land ownership. Is that right?
Yes, Councillor, so with these street trading, it's not about the sort of the ownership and that side of things and who can cross. It would be for the landowner to exercise their own legal rights over that.
Thank you. As I thought, and it's the observation is, it's interesting that in that same letter he goes on to suggest that the trading hours are reviewed, which sort of implies that whilst they're not happy, they're not issuing an outright refusal, because an outright refusal doesn't matter what the trading hours are. That was all.
Councillor Trapp.
Thank you. One thing I'm not quite clear, it's a very nice submission by the applicant, is where this track is. So is the track, so I'm looking at page 39.
Okay, so it's see that dirt right there?
I'm asking Alex B. So the track bifurcates at the cattle grid, which I can't see, but there's parking in front of number 52. Is that right? There's
Yeah.
a sort of half oval.
Yes, as I understand it from what Tracy has supplied there, that is her property.
Right, okay. But, and the other thing I noticed also, maybe I should ask the applicant about this, that the page 66, there's a whole lot of, seems to be other businesses already on East Fen Common and Kwai Fen Common, which are also customer visits. So I'm not sure about, so there's already seems to be something else happening there.
Yes, I think the point what Tracy was trying to make is that hers is the only business of that nature in the vicinity. The rest of these she's pointing out are different types of businesses entirely.
All right. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, Tracy, do you want to come forward now and make your application and your argument for? You have up to 10 minutes.
I don't need 10 minutes. I did try to put everything in the pack to try and help. Just a quick response to you about the parking and the track. So as you come off the cattle grid, it's quite wide, it's 2-car wide. You come round, there is one track that goes off to the right that serves 6 other houses. And then round to the left is myself, my 2 neighbours and another house. And as you come up to our house, it then splits. On the left-hand side, it goes down towards the horse field, which tends to be, if people are walking and going across the fields, that's the way they go. And the cars for my house and the 2 neighbours come straight forward. And there is quite a substantial amount of parking out there that residents already do park. Just to kind of reiterate everything I said, obviously I am born and bred Soham, I've lived there all my life. And the family has had long-standing connections with the local community. My family also run a business, so I'm very aware of how businesses should be run. Again, a few years ago, I unfortunately got quite ill and was unable to work full-time. I relied on benefits. I had limited capacity to work and needed a way that I could do something because I couldn't just sit there and stare at 4 walls. That's not me. So I knew that I liked baking, and I started initially by celebration cakes. Then my partner, the house is owned by my partner, he bought it last year and we've been renovating it. Last summer while we were renovating it, I started the cake shed initially as a trial thing to kind of see once we moved whether it would is something that I could do alongside, and that worked quite well, and lots of positive comments. And then we closed over the winter until we moved in, and we moved in February, and I restarted it then. I then, once I was aware, obviously, about the street, got the email about street trading licence. I applied, as, of course, I wanted to be fully compliant with everything that should be done, okay, and making sure that I was operating correctly in accordance with the council's requirements. I have considered all of the comments that have been made by people, and I'm happy to change the hours, especially obviously in winter, and I understand what they're saying about the street licence, and then there's no street lights. So I'm happy to reduce the hours for that. I didn't actually realise I'd put in for Friday, Saturday and Sunday, so I'm happy to just do 2 days. I only do 2 days at the moment. I also have, in response to the comment from Sheffins, I actually did write a letter to the Lord of the Manor and asked him about access, and he feels that it was misunderstood, that I think they felt, the letter kind of said, I can't trade on the common. I think they were under the impression that I was going to put a cake shed in the middle of the common, and he was then sort of spoke about, if I then did that and I then sold the business, that the residents are entitled to a share of that. However, he said, think wisely. Understood, but he said that the bottom of the letter, I'm sorry I forgot to bring it, it did say that legally he would help me with anything that I need any help with. I know that doesn't, it kind of answers what you were saying, but not completely regarding Sheffins, okay? Also, as I said, the evidence I've submitted shows the card transaction records, and it demonstrates how modest it is, that it's not full of people coming every hour of the day, that they are staggered throughout the day, and it is very few people. It's very rare for anybody to not pay on card these days, as I'm sure you're aware yourself. So that therefore provides extra evidence. I do hope that the documents have helped you to make an accurate picture of how it is run, and I appreciate the committee has got an important decision to make. I just ask you to consider the evidence as a whole, and the hope is that you'll see that this small business that I have has not resulted in any significant adverse impacts suggested in the comments. The business has given me an opportunity to continue working while remaining independent and continuing to contribute to the local community, despite the challenges with my health. I sincerely hope that you'll allow me to continue to do that, and I thank you for taking the time to consider the application today. Thank you.
Thank you. If you just stay there, Tracy, for any questions from councillors, have they got any? Councillor Trapp.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. I thought it was very, very comprehensive and very well done. I noticed that, that I think at maximum there was eight trades at one day, which must have severely taxed everyone. But you have those photographs of the parking on pages 46, 47. Were they at any particular time of day? Were they a weekday or when were they taken?
That was just taken at the weekend.
So it is at the weekend,
yeah.
which is when you would be trading?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the one where you can see the horse boxes. Yep, so the horse boxes, those are the neighbours.
Right.
They are permanently stationed there, is how I will word it.
Right.
And in response to you saying about eight people, one day had 8, but normally it's 8 over the course of the weekend.
So it's really sort of one every 1.5 hours?
Yeah, I mean,
according to you,
it's only ever once happened like that. However, this is not to me to put anything on the neighbours, just for an example. One of the neighbours, they leave and come to the house 6 times a day. So a few extra people, do you see what I'm saying? They're causing as much as a impact, for instance, as what people visiting the shed might be.
I also was impressed by your neighbours saying that there's no actual risk or any increase really in activity, that they were not, yeah.
Yeah, I spoke to Henry, for instance, who has the horses, because one of the comments was about the horses grazing. Funny enough, they'd got a celebration cake to collect from me, and he sort of said, and I mentioned it to him, and I said, does the shed have an impact on you going to the horses? They tend to go to the left if they take a vehicle, where I said to you where it separates the tract. He was like, no, not at all. He's like, the horses are used to everything, and the horses are behind your house. There are no free roaming horses at the front of East Fen Common because there's only one cattle grid. So the horses that he does have at the front are tethered, and then also obviously the other people kind of going, no, I just walked straight across the common. I don't really see a car or anything. So that was nice too.
Thank you very much.
Keith?
Thank you, Chair. I live in Soham. I'm the representative on the council for Soham, and I'm sad to say I've never visited your cake stand. As I was saying to a fellow councillor, on the rare occasion my wife bakes, she makes exceedingly good cakes for all the grandchildren's birthdays, etc. But she tends to try and not to cook cakes for us because she wants us to lose weight. Notwithstanding that, back to the serious matter of questions. Now, obviously, whilst we do not take into consideration the ownership of the land that people have to traverse over in order to get to your property and whether or not the Lord of the Manor can or can't refuse that, did you seek any advice in terms of the access? And the reason I'm interested in that is because I see that you've very sensibly taken out public liability insurance for up to £5 million. Are you satisfied that that insurance covers you if anybody has an accident going to or from your shop and then they claim against you because if you weren't there, they wouldn't be going there?
I didn't previously because I wasn't aware of it until obviously the comment came from Sheffins, which was then obviously when I approached the lord of the manor. And obviously with his comment if he will legally help me. I have written to him again. He has the most beautiful handwriting. I'm sure he writes with a quill and ink because the letter was stunning. And I have written in response to say, can we arrange to meet to see whether there is something more that he would like me to do. I do believe that £5 million would cover if anybody was to injure themselves walking across there. However, could it be that they not necessarily are coming to my house, because it is a public footpath, it's a byway, people use it all the time. So does it open up to the fact of someone saying, well, actually I was walking to her house? Yes, it does, but I'm not sure where they'd stand.
And again, we perhaps shouldn't consider too much whether or not insurance is sufficient or not. But the reason I'm asking these questions is as much to check what you've done to sort of cover any of those grey areas, and at the same time, if maybe it encourages you to just bottom out something that we haven't got an answer to, it could be useful, because nobody wants to be sued in the future. And you are right, Tim does have a very nice writing, Tim Clark. He's also a published author as well, so he writes eloquently as well as neatly as well. So my understanding is that you will trade whilst your stock is there, and then when it runs out, you'll close for the day. Yeah? And from the records that you've got here, you've had single figures per day customer-wise, is that correct?
Yeah, I've had days where I've only had 2 people. I've
Yeah.
had days where there was an example where one day, I don't know, everybody came for some reason, or it wasn't everyone, you know, it was 8. But I do tend to put out on social media or say what stock is available, what is left, and I will shut if it sells early. As much as, like I've said in the application, I've put 8 till 6. If you look at those, I don't think many people come before 10 a.m. I think I've had a one-off. For me, it's just that it is an honesty shed, and I put it out at 8 a.m. because I'm busy doing something else. And obviously I also then, if it is extremely hot, I will shut it or not open. I haven't opened because of the temperature, and I don't want it to affect the goods. I'm very aware of want people to have the best quality items.
Continue, just one more question.
Go ahead.
If we were to grant this licence, you've suggested that you would be open to a condition being applied regarding the trading hours in winter, is that correct?
That's correct. I understand that there's not street lighting, and I understand that by 4 p.m. it's normally dark, and I'm happy to do that to meet the conditions to ensure, yet again, you know, public safety if somebody was going to walk and buy cake.
Thank you, Chair. That's me complete.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that you expect payment by telephone. Do you have any other way of paying?
I do offer cash, but it's very, very rare. I can't tell you the last time somebody is paid cash. I tend to be at home, even though it is an honesty thing, just to keep an eye. I have had somebody knock on the door and say, my phone won't, you know, I put the Wi-Fi, my phone won't work, and I do have a card reader that I will then use them to, for them to pay via their card. I haven't had anybody not be honest as far as I'm aware, and if you do need to take a £3 slice of cake, take a piece of £3 slice of cake. I'm not, you know, I'm not in it to make millions. It's not a multi-million pound business. It's just a little cake shed.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No. Thank you very much. Right, what we'll do now is we will now discuss the situation and then make our decision and let you know. You can either wait until we've made our decision outside, or we can contact you. Okay, thank you.